Okay, so what sets us apart? I don't know, but I like drinking. And I want my friends and my customers to enjoy the time. My name is Shinobu Kato, and I'm a founder and a brewer of Kato Sake Works. I've been outside of Japan for like 18 years now. That was my goal when I started this business, that I did not want to transport Japanese culture or like a Tokyo to Bushwick. That's not my goal. I wanted to do a business that's more accepted and blended in Bushwick where I feel home. I'm from Tokyo, Japan. My hometown is called Koenji. So it's like 10-15 minutes of train ride from the city center of Tokyo. Our neighborhood is very residential, local. There's no like big businesses. I moved to the US in 2004. First 2 years I spent in Maryland. So it's like, the DC metro area. We hang out all the time. We went happy hours all the time. And then, we had like 6 a.m. tailgate. I did keg stand and beer pong and all that kind of fun stuff. So I enjoyed that truly. Then after the graduation of the grad school, the only job that I got was in Nashville, Tennessee. So we decided to move there. And I was, inviting my friends for the parties, something like that. And then always I had a problem to serve something Japanese. It's hard to find a good sake that I can pair with because it's either, too cheap or too expensive. And then there's no middle ground. So I got a small refrigerator and I started brewing sake. And then I liked it, my friends liked it, and we drank a lot. I enjoyed what I was doing during my corporate days in Nashville. And people are nice, and I had a good benefit and stuff. But, okay, I know what I would be doing in 10 years, 20 years from now. And that kind of scared me. And I wanted to do something by myself. And then at one time, I was doing sake as a hobby, but two things kind of started to merge. And I think that was a point that I was like, okay, maybe this might be a business. I decided to come to Brooklyn just because of the market. We opened the Kato Sake Works in April 2020. Since we started the business here, everything is so organic. And that's something that I enjoy very much. So all my employees, they heard about us, they live nearby, everybody's in 20 minutes walking distance. Every time I go home, I usually walk for 20 minutes. There's bars and breweries and liquor stores that we know very well. And then that's something I never knew until I moved to New York. I thought New York is just a big city, right? And then people told me that people are so not friendly. That's so wrong. If you know your space in a small neighborhood, it's a very comfortable or small community, right? And then I really like that. People ask us, okay, what's the best way to learn about sake? There's a lot of things like, yeast, rice, all the thing. Usually my answer is quantity. So if you want to learn sake, drink more sake. That's how I learned sake. You need to drink more and you need to, have more hangovers to understand sake. We try to make a good sake. Nothing pretentious or nothing fancy. We do all the, geeky stuff to make our sake authentic and good, but that's not your problem. Just drink good sake and have a nice time. That's a hope.
Hello, everyone. Here we are. We're back again. I want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day. I think it's very Shubo adjacent, if you would agree with me. So we're going to kick it off right away, but a few updates. Went through and did a lot of updates on the website to the rice and also the milling and polishing pages. Added a lot more scientific data to that and general process of how things work. So on the rice side of that, we went through and gave a history, the phylogenetic history of rice and where sake varieties come from. We gave a walkthrough of the rice growing season. We described the rice plant itself, the seed structure. Also, there's a lot of questions around the shimpaku and what that means, especially in Western terminology when we talk about it. Did a lot of back and forth of figuring out what the rice growing terms were in the West, and then back translated those to Japan and found a whole bunch of resources that describe very similar things. So we've gone ahead and put a bunch of resources in there for people to understand truly what does chalk mean and what does it mean to have a real shimpaku, the orientation of shimpaku, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things you can learn in there, so check it out. Um, I want to, let's see, there's there's a whole bunch of additional factors of how we judge rice quality, not just shimpaku. There's also waxiness and vitreousness and a bunch of other things. So I want to give a huge shout out to Reed Huddleston for connecting us with a person, Hermione Betterhausen at Hartwick College. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Um, just a lot of great information on that to kind of get us started on research. There was also some research we did on there on mitigating long chain amylopectin molecules during the increasingly hot growing season with nitrogen applications. So we're trying to get a better sense of how do these things occur and what can we do to prevent them, especially as weather gets hotter and hotter. Also did some graphical representations of the family tree of sake rice, if so you're interested to kind of get a sense of that. There's more out there on the internet, but we wanted to get some that we're a little bit more aligned with our sense of things. On the milling and polishing side, huge thank to Mike Simmons, who's a big part of our community here, for doing a ton of research on this. He's building his own at-home rice polisher in Canada, and a lot of people have joined in on that project, and it's really great. So we discussed the structure of the grain and how it's important to the why polishing is important at a much more technical level. The differences in table rice milling machines, so sort of the horizontal style with friction and abrasion polishing stones, and then you go over to the polishing machines for sake and sort of like the Congo roll and the difference in those. We even go into the actual technology, like the composition of Congo rolls and what you should be using if you're trying to build your own at home. Um, Describe the process, describe the quality of polished rice and how to assess that, um, different varieties of rice and how they differ in starch, protein, and fat molecular structure, like protein bodies and the various styles of those. And then we also talk a little bit about moisture absorption of rice and why that probably doesn't even matter if you're doing 60 to 90% polish. It's really a daiginjo factor, but it's mentioned a lot in brewery tours. So we thought we'd go dive into that more. And Shin Nakano did a whole write up on this. So pretty much we'll go into that more. And then finally, because this is just related to a talk coming up, Jake Merrick of Sequoia Sake will be giving a deep dive on rice in about 2 months. So not going to want to miss that. But today we are discovering how Kato's sake works. And so reminder to put any questions you have into the live stream chat, and people are helping out today. We'll copy them over so I can see them. Our guest today is Shinobu Kato. Um, I know a lot of people don't even know your name is actually Shinobu. So Shinobu, hi. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here today. We're really excited. I know I got a preview of your presentation, and it's just going to be great. So before we jump into that, I wanted to give people an opportunity to get to know you. So would you mind giving us a little bit of an introduction and just sort of tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get into sake?
Sure. So I'm Shinobu from Kato Sake Works, and background. I was born and grew up in Tokyo, or it's a bit of outside, not outskirt, but like 10 minutes train ride from the city center, but very residential or
a little like we have a lot of like students, poor students, and then like all the families and the thrift stores and the live music venues and yakitori izakayas under the train track. So that's where I grew up. Oh, I was lucky to be introduced to the great sake experience back in Japan when I was working. Of course, I started from the budget sake when I was in teenagers, but I was able to progress to a craft sake thanks to my boss's generous budget for drinking. But I moved to the US almost 20 years ago now. I went to a grad school in Maryland, and then kind of things reversed. And then, as a poor grad student, I got like 24 packs of Miller Lite or something much cheaper than Miller Lite, and uh, my friends, like a school friend, introduced me to all the American college drinking culture, so it was like kind of fun. Did keg stand? Maybe you saw it in the video. And then I got a job in Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. So that's where I worked in a corporate for close to 10 years. I didn't hate the job. I didn't love the job, but it was like a great, great benefit, great pay, but lacked some passion. And out of necessity, I started brewing my own sake at home. And then now it became a little more serious than homebrew. So that's a story.
Awesome. So I guess the next question to follow up with that would be why New York? Why New York? Why did you go there? I know you were in Tennessee for a while. Like, what brought you out there that you said this is where I'm gonna find, or found this business?
Yeah. It's a bit hard for any foreigners to start a business in the US. So, I had a challenge, and then I was lucky to get a green card from the company that I worked for, and then, I stayed there for extra years to thank them. But I got the status that I was able to do whatever I want to do, and Tennessee was just for the job, and I didn't have any, family members or anyone. I don't have any family members in any part of the U.S. anyway. Oh, my mom is still in Tokyo, by the way. Happy Mother's Day, mom. I don't know I don't think she's watching this, but oh, yeah. But in New York, at the time, I was researching different cities in the U.S. that make sense to start a business, and yeah, I had an Excel or spreadsheet with a bunch of different cities with, or different criterias, something like, the average temperature to the number of the clear sky days to the direct flight to Tokyo to all the things. And then surprisingly, New York, there was no sake brewery in New York at that time.
Mm.
And most of the West Coast cities were taken, right? And then because I was starting something new. Why do I have to bother if there's somebody already doing that
Mm.
in the area? And New York City was, especially the Brooklyn. There was nobody doing that. I didn't know that Brooklyn could at that time, so I was like, oh, why not? And then my wife told me that, okay, if you want to do something crazy like starting a sake brewery in the U.S., just go for the biggest city, and then if you fail, that's cool. If it's a big city, so that's a reason that I moved to the New York. And
Very
then, of
cool.
course, I learned that once I moved to New York, I found that Brooklyn Club is opening, and then also I learned that the proper sake is opening in Nashville. So I was like, okay, I didn't know anything of this. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy how much has happened in such a short amount of time. I mean, it
yeah,
really is. 10 years ago, you would have said, "Oh, there's literally nothing." But then all of a sudden, in the last 5 years, it's like
yeah,
we're popping up all over the place. It's great.
yeah, yeah.
So we're glad that you came to New York because I think you made a lot of great impact on the community in that area, and yeah, excited to see it keep growing. So one question I usually ask is, or want to ask is, what's something that you wish you knew when you were getting started? So when you were at that point, were there any things now that you're like, oh boy, that would be great to know?
Well, one thing I don't know. One thing I wish to know. Oh, you know, you can get things done, although there's a lot of hard work or like floor mopping or like toilet cleaning and everything. But you can you can get things done and you can get through. And
Yeah.
if I knew that, I would not have much of fears. I think fears is the greatest enemy for you to move to the next step. And then always you have a worry that, okay, what if it didn't work? What if it failed? What if we had angry customers? All those things. And then those fears are always kind of extra handicap for you to move as fast as you could. Oh, so that's probably something. I'm a little bit of the paranoid side, and I'm more less optimistic than I should. So always I think like, okay, what if? But I know that that's a bad habit.
Yeah. So I like the technology side of you. It's that constant panic of what's going to fail on this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Final question on here, and then I'm going to kick you over to your slides. Favorite bottle of sake or style of sake? What's kind of, you can answer that however you'd like.
Yeah. Style. I like Jumai.
Hmm.
I'm more Jumai side than Ginjo side, so I like
Hmm.
Jumai. Oh, yeah. I like Jumai. I like Kimoto.
Hmm.
The sake or the blend that had some like a big inspiration was Kokuryu's Jumai Ginjo Shizuku, and it was expensive, but I didn't pay the bill. I was lucky. And that was a bottle that turned me to like, okay, I really like sake. So
Yeah.
before then, sake was something that I didn't like, and then that was a moment. So that changed my career, I think.
Very cool. I appreciate you sharing that with us. All right, well,
Mhm.
let's do this so we can we'll get through the slides, and then we have a whole bunch of questions, and people will probably have more as it goes. So I'm going to pop you up now, and then you can go ahead and start. Okay?
All right, sounds
All right.
great. Okay, all right. So today's agenda is relatively broad. I think the first two sessions was more on the technical side, but I don't have the same technical background. So my agenda is a little bit broader, but I'd like to give you a kind of a high level view of how things work at this brewery. And then before I start, big thanks to Lucas. I don't know if everybody knows, but there's a lot of groundwork that Lucas is doing behind the scene, and I was lucky to see him doing that. And he's putting a lot of effort and time to make this stream work. So big thanks to Lucas. All right. Oh, so you already saw the video, so that's us. That video was shot like 2 years ago. So the construction and the transition was completed painfully. It took, of course, way longer than we originally estimated. But now we are operating at the new location for 1 year already. And we have a tap room, or we have a little bit bigger production system, and still nothing is stable, and we still have a lot of things to catch up, but it looks a little bit different from what you saw on the video now. What we try to become is a local sake brewery that enjoyed genuinely. And when I say local, or local being like a Brooklyn native business, but also I do have a root in Tokyo. So whatever I do has probably a flavor of Tokyo, but that's not the intention. I don't want to transplant Japan to Brooklyn, but I want to have more like a genuine local business here that I call home now. Oh, so that's a goal that we try to make here at Kato Sake Works. Before going into how we run the brewery kind of main presentation, just wanted to talk about a little bit of the philosophical side. So the few assumptions, we make sake as a business, and I know that today's audience are probably half home brewers, half commercial brewers. That's what Lucas told me. But we are doing this as a business. So there are certain things probably that does not apply if you're a home brewer and making sake as a hobby. For example, when I was home brewing at home, I was able to decide the brewing schedule around my like a vacation. You know, when I have a vacation or business trip to Mexico for 2 weeks, I was able to stop the production or doesn't have to do the steering during that time, something like that. While running this as a business is a little bit different. That there's you need to have a consistency, you need to have a more reliable schedule because you do have customers who are seeing you as a like a grown-up business, so many decisions that we make is based on the basics that, hey, we are doing this as a business, not as a hobby anymore. And then the another assumption that I believe that applies to many of you, but not all of you, is resources are limited. And when I say resources, funding, time, people, and space. And if you are lucky to be in the position that, okay, you have a angel investor with like deep pocket, and then you can get the equipment you want and you can get the space you want, then ignore my presentation, because most of the things that we are struggling is how to prioritize the limited resources. And or like New York City is quite expensive, and then space is quite limited. So a lot of things that we decide is based on the assumption that, okay, resources are limited. So those are the two things that probably you'll notice throughout my presentation. And then of course, there's a lot of things that we could do better if we have unlimited resources, but reality is not the case. So we have to make a sometimes compromise, or we have to choose our priority. So those are the kind of things that I wanted to mention so that you understand the logic behind the decisions that we make. Talking about the priorities, of course, we are making sake. So sake is our product, and we want to make a quality sake, right? So definitely that's a priority. But we prioritize process over product, or like we are making process. Of course, we are making product, but we are making process to make great product consistently. So in that sense, we prioritize process, and then I think it's maybe that's because of my more like a process focused background in my corporate days, I guess. I was in IT and then also like a process process design side. But if you take a product or your craft as an art, and which is also right thing. So there's some breweries take more like a craft approach or like artisanal approach, right? Then each product is your masterpiece, and you are building the product. While our case is a little different. Of course, we take each product as our baby, but at the same time, we are running this as a business, and consistency is important. And then also we have a limited resources, so that efficiency and productivity is important. So how can make a product in a sense of like a repeated, quality? And then in order for us to be able to do that, we need to have a process to make that happen. So while we are designing and making product, we are actually designing process and an operation. Even before then, actually, it's like a people who makes process and a product. So the most important thing for us is a people who are working in a team. And of course, you can design great process, but you need to have a people who can make a great process to make a great product, right? So this is like, our priority. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't prioritize the quality of the product, but this is more like, our thinking process that, hey, in order for us to have a great product, we need to have a great process. In order for us to have a great process, we need to have a great people. So that's our thinking. And a few guidelines or the things that we always remind ourselves. The first thing is market is right. So, let's take a product, let's take sake as a product. And then I thought I made a great sake, right? And then I thought that this is great. And then all my friends told me that your sake is great, and they enjoyed getting sake. But if you put that on the shelf at the liquor store, and if that product doesn't sell, that's a true answer that, hey, although whatever I think, market doesn't think that your product is great. So always we want to make sure that whatever the ultimate answer will come from the market. That's a point. And in order for you to get the real evaluation, you need to sell the product, because as long as you are giving away the product, people will give you a very good feedback, of course. And that was I met one of the beer brewer in Nashville, and he told me this. And then since then, I'm thinking, but hey, as long as you are a home brewer and you are giving away sake, everybody loves your sake. But once you start selling your sake, that's a true answer. Yeah. And then for that, we try to use a tap room, so that whatever we make here, we try that at the tap room so that we can get a real feedback. And sometimes whatever we think is great is not received great, or sometimes something that we didn't think great is received great. So you never know. But we think that market is always right. And next one is let mistakes happen. And mistakes happen. Lucas wanted me talk about the mistakes, so I have a section on mistakes at the very end of today's presentation. But knowing that mistake happens, it's better to have the mistake happen earlier, when you still have a way to react. And I'll talk about the product recall at the very end, but once you start running the brewery, mistake becomes costly, and not costly because of the like a cost of the equipment failure or something, but you have a strong financial pressure to ignore mistakes and deceive yourself that no, this is not a mistake, this is right, because you need to have a gut and a courage to say that, oh, this didn't work, sorry, we have to do something, when you have a strong pressure to run the day-to-day brewery, right? Yeah, so it's easier to have mistakes done much earlier. And if you're home brewing but thinking about opening your own brewery, please, you want to make as many mistakes as possible now, instead of waiting until the later time when the stake on the mistakes is much higher. Oh, so when you're product developing, you want to make as many mistakes as possible. Otherwise, or when you have a product that's ready for shipment and then realize that something is missing, you may not have a choice to stop that production, and you might have to ship the product that might harm your reputation, right? Or so that's why we are kind of encouraging people to make as mistakes as possible, or so that we can learn more from the mistakes early from. And then the last one is don't invent problems. So I think most of us are kind of having a scientific or engineer mindset, and we love to go deeper and start nailing things down to make the process better, right? Oh, I have a tendency that, okay, after listening to Chiaki's presentation, oh, maybe I should change this, maybe I should change that, so that we can have a better product. But going back to the first bullet point, did your market tell you that you have a problem? No. So what are you trying to fix? And every time I read something and then I found out, okay, oh, this is a better way to do something. But are you actually solving the problem that you have today, or are you inventing a problem? So that's something that we always kind of keep in mind, that, hey, let's not invent a problem, because resources are limited. So that's kind of high level or philosophical presentation. And from here, I'll explain you about how our brewery is set up right now, so that you have a high level view. And then after that, I can talk about how we do the production. This is the kind of evolution of my sake brewing setup. So I started as a home brewer. So, and then I think many of you are home brewers. So I started like your setup that I had a 10-liter batch system, like 5-gallon bucket. And then I only had one fridge as a ferment refrigeration. And then I was making a batch of sake every 1 month, 2 months, something like that. And that was how I started. And then I upgraded my home brewing system one time to add one more refrigerator, so that I can run 2 batches simultaneously. Because, and then I think I upgraded the size of the tank a little bit. So instead of using like a round bucket, I found something more like a square one, so that can I can use the refrigeration space more efficiently. But anyway, the challenge that I had around that time was, I'm spending so much time to make a batch, and then it takes 1 month, 2 months, And then once it's pressed, it's only like 10 bottles. And then, you can drink 10 bottles overnight. And then you have to wait for another 2 months. That sounds kind of crazy. So I upgraded the system into like a two line system, but still that was a relatively small production system. And then before KSW, I kind of trialed a little bit bigger system. So that one had a 50 kilo system, 50 kilos dry rice system. And I use like a plastic drum to be a fermenter with a small glycol or system for beer line cooling, and then use a chiller coil in the tank. So that drastically upgraded or increased the production scale, and then that was like a one-person operation. And then that was like 2,000 liters capacity if you want to run that as a consistent production. And then we moved to the first location as a Kato Sake Works, the space that you saw in the video. And then that place had a 300 liter stainless steel fermenters. So the batch size was 100 kilos. And we had four. And then because we have 4 tanks, basically we were able to run the batch every week. Right. And then at the end of the 4 week, you clear the tank, and then next batch goes in, and then it's cascaded like weekly schedule. And theoretical or maximum annual production was close to 10,000 liters, although that's on the paper, and then something doesn't go right. So actual production record was probably like 8,000 liters or something like that at the very end of the old space. But we were running the brewery like every week, and it was crazy. It was too hectic, and you saw how small the space was, and everybody hated because we make sake as much as we could, but we sell them out by the next week, and then we have to repeat the same thing. Oh, yeah. But we did that for like almost 2 years, running like 100% capacity. And one thing you maybe most of you have done the sizing calculation by yourself, and then in order for you to increase the size, you can increase the cycle time, or you can increase the batch size, right? So in order for you to get the same amount of output, you can just have a bigger tank, and you don't have to brew every week, right? So that's one route. So in our case, it was 100 kilos system and weekly, but we could have done 400 kilo tank and then brew once a month, and we have a little more time to breathe. The reason that we didn't do that was going back to the philosophy that we wanted to make as many mistakes as possible. So, if you have 400 kilos with the same annual output, then you can only make 12 batches per year. But if you do a smaller scale or weekly, then you can do 52 batches per year. And you can learn a lot from within the 52 times. So that's the reason that we decided to do the weekly batches. It was quite hectic though. And this location, we scaled that up to 600 kilos, so 6 times bigger. And then also we added one more fermentation tank. So it's a little bigger. And right now we are not running a full capacity yet. So we are doing like every other week batch schedule. But since we run the weekly schedule in the previous place for 2-3 years, we know how to run the bigger system. Yeah, so that was great, like a learning opportunity. And this is a very high, like a bird view of the current Troutman location, 2,500 square feet. So still, I think it's a smaller side in today's sake brewery landscape, I think. And right-hand side is the entrance. So there's a big entrance on the right-hand side, and we have roughly 20% of the space is tap room, and then go deeper, and then we have a production floor, and then at the very end we have a cozy room and walk-in and an office and a lab, and then I'm in this lab right now. And yeah, the fermentation tanks are lined up on the left-hand side when you go in, and the right-hand side is a steaming and storage. So the operations start from the steamer side, and then all the steamed rice goes into one of those fermentation tanks, and then fune press is in the center. So after the fermentation, it goes through the fune press to one of the storage tanks over there. And this is 5 times bigger than our original location in Central. So we were so excited about how big this space is. But nowadays, we have a space limitation. So still, we try to fit everything, but and I wish we have a forklift, but we don't have a forklift. So. And the very high level equipment specs that we have. So rice steamer is a 30 kilowatt steam generator, electric. And then the steamer is 600 liter, like a false bottom, like a half size tank. So we do have the steam generator and the steamer completely separated. So, some of the koshiki that you can get here from Japan has the steam generation and the steamer stack up together as a one set. While I just prefer to have two separated so that it's a little bit easier to design and easier to maintain. So the steam generator, what it does is just to generate the steam, and then you can buy in the market. And then steamer is custom built, but it's not super technically advanced, but it's just a big, half-size tank with a false bottom. So it's relatively easy for us to design. And we have a 300 liter open top motor tank, and a 2,000 liter open top moromi tank, and nothing sexy, just a tank with glycol and insulation. We do have a glycol chiller on the roof. This was a mistake I made, that initial glycol chiller that we bought was too small, not for the refrigeration side, but for the pump circulation side. And we had to upgrade the glycol chiller. That was an expensive mistake. Yeah, fune press. We do a fune style press, 600 liter hydraulic fune press. This was custom built by our stainless steel manufacturer, Agile Stainless, with the help of EDA Group on the engineering side. So that took some time to go back and forth, and this is the first time that we built fune, and then everybody, for the same true for everybody, but it's working nicely right now. And then bottling, just the gravity filler, nothing fancy, and then we use a steel band, like a screw cap for the bottle. So that's a base equipment spec. If you're interested, you can review this flow chart in detail, but this is like a process flow diagram that we designed before we designed the physical space, so that we have a kind of clear understanding of what kind of equipment works, and then what kind of equipment to equipment material transition needs to be done. Some are like manual hoist of the rice from place A to place B. Sometimes it goes through the pump, but because of the different viscosity of the liquid, you need to have a different type of pump, something like that. But this kind of helped to talk with equipment manufacturer, because they don't know how sake is made in the same terminology. So I just wanted to give them some idea that, hey, sake is made in a kind of similar way, that as long as you know how to design the process, you can design the process. Yeah. And this is our weekly schedule. So the production team works from Monday to Friday, like 8 or 9 to like 4 to 5 ish. And then again, resources limited, and we are not in Japan that people can work 24 hours living in the same brewery, something like that. So we need to prioritize, and we need to kind of make some compromise to fit everything in our reasonable schedule. So we do we do 2 batches of koji. So koji batch number 1 in purple starts from Monday to Wednesday, and then the second batch goes in from Wednesday to Friday. So that's a koji side. And then also we have a sandan jikomi starting from Tuesday. So Tuesday is soe, and then Thursday is naka, and Friday is tome. So we do have a rice steaming every day. Monday for koji, Tuesday for soe, Wednesday for koji, number 2, and then Thursday naka, and Friday tome. So that's a very that's more like a set schedule, because we can dictate when to start koji, when to start the build. And then also we have a tap room. So tap room is open from Tuesday to Sunday. So that's more like a fixed schedule. And then right now, we are not building every week. So sometimes we do koji and then sometimes you come together, but sometimes we don't. And sometimes we have 2 kojis, but sometimes we don't. So it's a little less hectic, but this is the operation schedule when we go to the weekly build. And then there's some floating components like pressing. So I wish I have 100% control of the fermentation, but we don't. So sometimes your press schedule changes based on how your moromi reacts to you. And our press is 600 liters, so it cannot handle the full tank. So we have to do half press twice to press the whole batch. So day 1 in the morning, we do a press setup, and then day 1 afternoon, we press the first half, and then we leave the press running overnight. And then day 2, we clean up the kasu, and then we do the second half of the press. And then day 3, we do the kasu for the second half, and then clean the press. So that's a 3-day process. And sometimes, depending on the weekend situation, because of the press, we might have to work on Saturdays, Sundays, or sometimes we need to have some, break in between, so that day 1, day 2, and then day 3 is break, and then day 4, something like that. So it's a little bit hard to put this into the weekly schedule. And then the right-hand side is for the like a finish of the sake. So once it's pressed, we do filtration, pasteurization, and bottling. And you can do that independent to the press schedule a little bit. You don't want to wait that long, but after you press, you can have your sake pressed sake in the tank, and then you can decide when you want to start the filtration to the bottling. So that's another like a floating schedule. And we try to fit those press schedule and finishing schedule into our weekly calendar somehow. Oh, so yeah, it gets busy, and then, Joni does this. Joni is our leader brewer, and she's a master of scheduling right now. So she can kind of move those components here and there. And then every week we have a schedule or review, so that every Friday we check like, okay, what's coming in next 2 weeks, and then we have to. Sometimes we need to change like, oh no, I have a seminar with Lucas, so I cannot do this on this day, or something like that. Yeah, yeah. But again, if you have an option to do this less hectic, if you decide to go with a route that bigger batch size but less cycle time, if you have a twice as big batch size, you don't have to do this weekly, but you can do this bi-weekly. If you have 4 times bigger tank, you can do this every 4 weeks instead of every week. So it's all your choice, but we decided to do a little bit hard way. So that's a base setup of our brewery, and then I just walk you through how we make our one of the product, Jumai. So Jumai is our, probably we sell Jumai the most just because Jumai is on the top of the menu. Oh, very like old school, or technically it's Jumai Ginjo because we use 60% calories. But to simplify for the simplicity for the marketing, we just call it Jumai because our customer doesn't, are not ready to have two foreign words at the same time. But it's a Jumai Ginjo. And let's see. So 60% calories. Currently, we are getting rice from Ida farm, the Ida rice. And then Kojikin is Higuchi's Ginjo, the powder type 1. And then East is Kyokai number 901. And then water is a city tap water with regular filter. So we are not using anything fancy. And I think that goes back to our philosophy on the priority, but we are still in the stage to perfect the process. And right now we are fairly good at making a consistent product at every batch. But if you do a side-by-side taste test of batch number 3 to 4 to 5, for example, you still can see the difference. And then sometimes we have hiccups, and I know this went too dry, this went too sweet, something like that. So still that's within the acceptable flavor profile. And our Junmai sake from batch to batch tastes like our Junmai sake. So we are getting close, but that was our first goal, or to be able to consistent good product without changing any variables. So we've been using the same style, the same rice, same koji, same yeast for past 4 years. And of course, we did some like a small batch pilot with other things, but basically we have not changed any of those. And the reason, of course, as a brewer, there's a temptation that, hey, do you want to use Yamada Nishiki? Do you want to use Kanazawa Kobo? Do you want to use brown rice? All those things. Yes, sure, I want, but again, our resources are limited. And what's the current goal? Current goal is to be able to make a great sake with the most widely available ingredients. And then that's the reason that we are sticking to the same ingredient for now. Or we will probably try doing other things in near future, but we didn't want to do that too early before we know how to we run the process. Oh, the reason that we picked Carlos instead of like a Japanese rice like Yamada Nishiki, the one reason was reliability on the supply. So again, we are running this as a business, and we need to be able to produce the same sake year round. And because our floor space limit is limited, we don't have a luxury to keep, you know, 10 pallets of rice in our brewery. You know, our ingredient ordering is more like a, you know, just-in-time Toyota system, so that we only have a very limited amount of safety stock here because we don't have a space, and we have to order as we consume the ingredients at hand. And you know, Carlos was the most reliable rice to get, because okay, if something happened to this, you know, this year's Yamada Nishiki, and then, you know, they are not able to supply, and then we have to switch, that's a disaster for the small operator like us. And that was the reason that we wanted to have a base product using the most reliable or supply of the ingredients. Mhm. And our Jumai recipe, we used to do a sokujo at the old space, and we switched to the Kobo style. So Kobo style is to skip the no. Kobo style is to skip the shubo, right? Yeah. So right now, we got a dry yeast, and then we skip the shubo for Jumai. We are still all working on the Kimoto recipe. So for Kimoto, we'll do the moto or, you know, other style. But for this one, we are doing the Kobo style. Koji ratio is 20%, water ratio is 130%. Moromi days is average 23 days. And when I say average, sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. And that's an area that we have not fully nailed down on the control. And highest temperature is 10C, and the target ABV is 16%. This recipe, we've been using the same recipe for 4 years. Nothing special, just textbook recipe. So one thing that, at least for the flagship product that we try to do, is to do things as written in the textbook, as close as possible. And then of course, we can be creative, we can be innovative, and then do more fun stuff. But again, our first priority is to build a process that we can make anything on the textbook. So that's a goal. The rice prep process. So I'm going to step by step with some numbers and then break down. We use base unit as a 10 kilo, so we put 10 kilo of dry rice in a bucket and do a washing to soaking to drying cycle with a unit of 10 kilo. So that kind of helps us streamline the process. And then you will see my build schedule, but there's some round up and a round down because of this 10 kilo. And then again, this is not the greatest, but at the same time, you know, resource is limited. So, you know, this is the most efficient way without sacrificing too much on the quality. We wash rice 5 minutes, and you know, depending on the temperature and everything, soak time varies, and then we drain the soaked rice for 2 minutes, and we vacuum for 1 minute. So that's being consistent. We just use a timer and make sure that every single bag goes through the same process. And in the steamer, we usually, the biggest rice steam is on Friday. That's for tome and 240 kilos. So on that day, we do 2 layers. So we put half of the rice in the steamer first, let it steam, and once steam goes up to the top, we add next layer. But other than the tome, we just do the 1 layer, and we don't use dummy rice. We used to use dummy rice at the old space, and then that kind of helps to capture the extra condensation at the bottom. Well, this one, I think we tried with a dummy rice, and then it's working fine. And then there's not too much like mushy rice at the bottom, so we stopped using the dummy rice. Yeah, heat up takes roughly like 15 minutes. Of course, it depends on the rice volume, but usually it's relatively quick. And then we steam for 40 minutes, and then we put in the cooling platform, and then depending on the outside temperature, it cools within like an hour. Sometimes it takes like few hours. But that's our rice steaming process. And then this is our build schedule. Soe Nakatome, and you see that the numbers are rounded. And initially we were doing like, okay, every time we measure the amount of the rice, and then do the steam and everything, and we realized that, okay, the number that we are rounding, if you see that from the percent, the context of the total is very small. So, okay, this time let's prioritize the efficiency. And then now we can do, well, we don't even need to count anything. We just need to know how many bags that we need for that day. So that helps our process very, very much. And then Koji, our Koji room is nothing, it's just a big clean box. We didn't have a great looking cedar panel, or we didn't have any like, shiny stainless steel wall, or like a very, very smart platform with sensors and then everything. No, it's just a room. And then we put all the like a climate control thing on top of it, so that it's not built into the construction of the room. And then again, that's much simpler. Or we didn't need to hire somebody who's super into the climate control kind of thing. Our general contractor was able to build a room, and then we bought all the sensors and then heaters and then stuff on Amazon, and then just made a DIY thermostat. So that's quite simple. And then we do a 10 kilo or hako, times 8. Yeah, so we can make 80 kilos of koji per batch. And if we do this twice per week, then it's 160 kilos. And then that's a little more than we need for the 600 kilo batch. Yeah, so that's a kind of schedule. And then day one is hikikomi and then tokomomi on the we put the folding stainless steel tables out and then do this and then make a big bundle. And then day two morning is mori, and evening is nakashigoto. And then you see that we skip the kirikaeshi that should have happened between day one and day two. And then again, this is a business decision that, okay, we cannot have people at 2 a.m. or working for Koji, and we have to sacrifice something. So we decided to skip that. And our Koji schedule is a little bit adjusted so that that fit into our regular work hours. And of course, again, that's not ideal. If you have somebody sleeping next to the cozy room, then they can work whatever the time that they need to work. But we don't have a luxury for that. And when I was home brewing, I was doing more like a traditional old schedule. So I have to wake up at 2 a.m. to do whatever the things that I have to do. And that works if I'm doing this as a hobby. But again, going back to the assumption, I'm running this as a sustainable business, and me sleeping here is not sustainable. So that was a decision that I had to make. And then day 3 is a shimai shigoto, and then in the afternoon we do the koji, and then repeat the process again. Press, it's an old school fune press. So we got a pressing back from Japan. So that's one of the few things that we imported from Japan, and we do the bagging. I don't know how many bags we normally use, but it's a lot of bags. And then we do an overnight press. We let it, sink a little bit initially without the pressure, and then low pressure first for like 2-3 hours, and then bring it to a little bit higher pressure, and then leave that overnight. And then tomorrow morning we have a dry kasu. One thing we have to DIY was a transfer. So, because of the space constraint, our fune, the drain port of our fune is very close to the floor. And, we cannot let it sit overnight. So we have a transfer vessel that when the vessel is up to the certain line, it automatically kicks on the pump to the holding tank. So that system runs overnight. So sometimes you hear the pump transfer, in every few minutes. So that's a plus side. And then of course you have to do kasu. So that's another manual process that we have to do kasu. And I hate to waste kasu, but at the same time, there's no other alternative right now. So we compost most of the kasu. Yeah. And by the way, our kasu tastes very good because the fune is not as efficient as yabuta, and we left out a lot of aromas to kasu. That's some of the people who wants to get our kasu, they have a very good, we get a compliment like your kasu is very delicious, and then every time I hear that I was like, oh yeah, but I wish our sake is delicious, not the kasu. Yeah. And then the finishing side, we do a cartridge filter, and pasteurization is a tank pasteurization. So we do a 0.45 micron filter to clear jumai and another like a clear sake. And then pasteurization, this is a heat exchanger, and heat source is our steamer. So we use steam as a heat source, and then run the cold sake on the other side. And then that brings the temperature of the tank up to 62 or so in probably half an hour, 30 minutes. So it's not that bad. And then after that, we use cold tap water to cool it down using the same heat exchanger. And then that again takes half an hour to cool the temperature down to the like a room temperature. And then after that, the tank refrigeration takes care of the cooling of the sake. And initially, I wanted to have more like a more sophisticated, like inline pasteurization, so that it goes up to the certain temperature and it cools down inline, so that you can start from cold, and then pasteurization happens in line and it goes back to the tank cold. But nailing down that variable, or you need to have a speed and a temperature and then everything right, and a number of the plate and the surface area. So technically that's possible, but is that easy to handle, easy to maintain? Maybe no. So we decided, okay, it's okay to have a circular system, and then so that we know that when to stop, when to cool very manually, and then it's relatively inexpensive. So that's what we do for the finish. And then bottling, we do have most of the bottling equipment on a cart. And then again, our space is limited. So we share the same production space with bottling side and a rice side. So usually this happens in the afternoon when rice related stuff is done. And then we do everything in one line. So we start from washing and sanitization, and then do the labeling and the filling and the capping and then going back to the box. And right now, capping is a bottleneck, so it's the slowest process. And but still, we can do what's our track record? But we can do like 40 cases in like 2 hours or so. So it's not that bad. Yeah. And then our batch size is like 100 cases per batch. So it's not that much. So that's a very high level, step by step process of how we make our Junmai sake. And then, Lucas specifically told me that, hey, Shinobu, you need to talk about the mistakes that you made. So, I don't have a shame, and I'm telling you all the mistakes that we have made. We have made.
I love you're blaming me for that. Like I'm the one being like, you got to tell us your mistakes. we know there's always mistakes. This is just a matter of like, telling other people that we know you make
Yeah,
mistakes too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate you doing it though.
yeah. So, it's like a yeah, laundry list of all the kind of stupid things that we've done. And then you can tell we made a mistakes for probably every single steps for the past 4 years time. So rice prep, yeah, one time we realized that the rice water soaking time is so inconsistent, and then something is wrong. And then we thought like 20 minutes is ideal, and then this bag is perfect, but next bag was so under or over or something like that. And then eventually we realized that water pressure was too high, and our rice washer is water driven, but because the water pressure was too high, we are losing more rice grain than we thought. And we didn't catch that because there's a lot of foams and then the opaque liquid, but actually we were losing rice too. Oh yeah, but I was almost like at the paranoid, like why this is so inconsistent. Oh, and then yeah, so that was a rice issue. Or fermentation, we had a lot of fermentation issues. Or where I don't know where to start. Or we had yeah, yeah. of course, wild yeast contamination. Oh, we had that. Luckily, our wild yeast was delicious. So it produced like a strawberry tropical aromas, and it turned out to be a very great sake. Although that was not our intention. Uh, so we still didn't figure out where the uh, wild yeast contamination came, although it stopped once we moved here. So I think it was a little bit of the sanitization of the space, and then or equipment maybe, or we used to make kimoto as a part of our product, and then we have not bring that back after we moved to this location, and we've been trying, and then I think next week we are doing like a 6 trial of the kimoto, but first 5 failed. Yeah, so yeah, that's another thing that I think we lost the same, like a you know lacto environment in the bag, and for some reason we are not able to replicate the same flavor. So we are kind of going back to the drawing board. But we have an issue on the fermentation. And then of course sometimes fermentation was too fast, too slow. Oh, some are some are the mistakes that we were not able to figure out why. Maybe the temperature, environment, something like that. Some of the situation were completely our due to our stupidity. That one time, some of us didn't realize that flow meter is directional, and we put the flow meter backwards, and it didn't count the liters properly, and our sake was way watered down than the original recipe, and then that was that messed up the fermentation. And also one time we lost the refrigeration. We were to change the refrigerator or the glycol unit because of the upgrade, and then the originally we expected for the 2 days downtime, but it became 5 days. And then of course it was a warm day, so fermentation went crazy, and like we had a very dry sake in like less than 2 weeks or something like that. So, and then because of that, not all the rice got liquefied. So we had a very thick layer of the rice at the bottom that our pump was not able to take off. Yeah. So that was another thing. Oh, yeah. Plus, yeah. We it took some time to configure the right duration and the pressure. But we had 2 mistakes by human errors. One time, one of us forgot to turn on the transfer system, so we pressed overnight, and all the sake went into drain. Yeah, yeah. That
No
was
one's
a
here.
super
No one
simple.
else but you is hearing me freak out as you're saying that right now, and I'm like, oh my god, oh, it's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
worst. I'm so
yeah.
sorry you had that happen.
That happened. And then also sometimes we forgot to press into pleasure, and the next morning we realize that, oh, we didn't press. So those are like a small or stupid thing. Yeah, filtration. Yeah, we thought it was filtered, and then realized that it was not filtered. One of us forgot to put the filter cartridge in the housing, and didn't filter, of course. Pasteurization. What happened to the pasteurization? Oh yeah. Some of the sake that we thought we pasteurized, it was not properly pasteurized, and then there
Uh,
was still a lot of activity in the bottle.
uh,
So that happened. Oh, And the bottling, yeah. Capper had an issue, and then we had a claim from the customer like, "Hey, your cap doesn't open." And yeah, it took some time for us to figure out how to properly set the capper. Yeah, so everything. So we do have a travel ticket system, and you work in IT, so probably you're super familiar. But every time we have an issue, we cut the ticket, and depending on the urgency, we assign somebody to fix the issue. Oh, and we have a very long list of the open ticket right now. Oh, but again, it's another thing that you don't have unlimited time and a resource, right? So we need to prioritize which ticket to work, and basically the priority is based on the severity of the issue and urgency, right? If we have an issue with fermentation and we are not able to make a sake, that's a big civility because we might not to have a product. But if we have enough stock in the walk-in, we might have some time to figure that out. Or if we don't have enough stock in the walk-in and we have a customer waiting, then that boosts up the priority, right? But at the same time, sometimes you might have a band-aid solution to get by, right? If a filtration doesn't work, but if you have an old filter that might work, at least we can buy time so that it's not the highest priority. Still, you need to fix that, within certain time frame. So always, it's a kind of juggling of the priority because we don't have unlimited resources. And then this is the last thing that I talk about product recall. Or we had our first product recall 2 months ago or so. Oh yeah, one of our bartender slacked us on weekend that, hey, by the way, this batch of Nigori sake doesn't look like Nigori. It's clear. And then I was like, okay. And then of course, we have a consistency issue. So some of the Nigori was a relatively thinner than the other. So we knew that. But he was like, no, 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 no. I'm not talking about that level. It's more like Junmai. So Monday morning we checked all the bottles that we bottled in the walk-in, and then realized that every single bottle is clear.
Oh no.
So yeah, flavor was great, of course, but you cannot sell clear sake as a nigori sake. So we tracked down the customers that we potentially shipped them, and then told them, hey, I'm so sorry, but your nigori may not look like nigori, so we can come and replace. One of the customers, yeah, your nigori looks like a crystal clear, so I went and then replaced. Other customers, they've already sold to the at the restaurant or something like that, so they were not able to identify. But that happened. And then of course the mistake was using the wrong port, and didn't mix the nigori, so we bottled the sake that is settled already, and then we kind of bottled the clear portion. But again, that was the highest priority, and then we fixed the issue, and then also we changed our process of bottling, so now we have a better quality control. But mistakes are made, and then it happens, so you'd better do mistakes early on instead of having that in front of your customer. But that's that's the all about my presentation.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I have to say, I was thinking in my head as you're going through this, and when you got to the point of admitting faults and things like that, and like what had gone on, it's it's very, very genuine of you to do, and can't thank you enough for being so upfront and honest about how these things are. Because, I mean, I've now this last 2 years I brewed at like 6 different breweries, and it's all like that. Like everyone has the mistake here, the mistake there. This isn't working. That batch came out weird. It's very normal. And I think normalizing it and making everyone kind of say, like, oh, yeah, we had this batch, it did this, so much easier to talk about once it's out in the open. So, I know sometimes it's difficult for people to come out and say we have this challenge, but I can only thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for you know, we're taking the I don't know, what how do they say it? Like falling on that sword for everyone, and then like starting this conversation. So I appreciate it. One thing that I thought about when you were going over the mistakes with rice and or various pieces, I thought, Calrose for a lot of people is. I'm going to pop up here, just two of us. Calrose is a difficult rice to work with for some people. It doesn't melt as well. What were some of the things that you learned to get Calrose to melt better than maybe the first time you worked with it, or has it not changed for you?
I never seriously brewed with other rice, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Carlos has been my norm, but I
yeah,
know that our yield is much lower.
uh,
So yeah, that's something that I just take it for granted.
sure.
Oh yeah, and then maybe so maybe I should try with 50% Yamada Nishiki or something, and then see that it's actually works much better.
But have you tracked like let's say fermentation after fermentation? Um, Have you tracked like highest bombe you reached like on day three or whenever your highest bombe occurs? Do you see
Mhm.
large fluctuations in there, or have you seen it kind of trend upwards or downwards over time when you from batch to batch? Or in other words, like, have you tried to even change that and get more bombe out of it? And what have you done to achieve that?
We have not done anything yet.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we've been gathering data, and we've seen sometimes it works better, sometimes it doesn't work better, and then of course that kind of goes to the final, or like a number of the bottles that we could bottle from the one batch, right?
Hmm.
Or we have not had a chance to analyze that data and then find where the you know variance comes from.
Okay.
Or we have some guess, but that's probably like this year's one of the areas that I wanna start looking into. Okay, how do we, okay, let's go deeper and then see why we have so much variance on the yield, or the liquefaction. Is that
Sure.
anything weird in the temperature, anything we did differently,
Yeah.
or how that goes back to the koji quality that we put into the specific batch? But we have not done that analysis yet.
Yeah. I think especially too, we talked to the few people about what analysis they can do. Like what do you have time for? I know that last month Byron mentioned that. He said, I just don't have time to do a lot of the analysis. And
Yeah.
there are some tests that, especially as I talk with a lot of homebrewers, and we've come up with tests that we've taken from Japan, or we've read in various lab procedures where they'll do like an Amazake test, right? Where they do like some water, some koji, put it in an incubator for 3 hours and or not an incubator, like a sous vide for like a couple
Mhm.
hours, right? And then they measure the
Mhm.
Brix or the glucose. And I gotta say, even setting up that test and then running it and then doing the analysis and then cleaning up, I mean, that's a good half hour to hour of someone's
Yeah.
time, right? So it's
Yeah.
not something you can easily spare, especially because you're so considerate of, hey, it's 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, like people are leaving now, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I can appreciate when people have these machines. When we were touring or origami, and they're like, yeah, we
Mhm.
just like put this thing in, and then we walk away. I
Yeah,
said, oh,
yeah,
that's pretty
yeah.
nice. That's pretty nice.
That's pretty
Um,
nice.
I know Katie over there isn't just walking away, but the fact that
Mhm.
she's like, I do this, and then I go work on other tests. It's
Yeah,
nice. So
yeah.
okay, so we have a ton of questions, and we're not going to be able to hit them all. So I'm going to try to kind of get to some of the ones in here that kind of stood out. Um, as you were going through the koji, you described using boxes. Just out of curiosity, so I can get a sense of how you do it. Do you have any slats or things that you put underneath to let it cool when you hit shimai, or any kind of like Gore-Tex covers or anything or cloth you put over the top to help with humidity?
Yeah, so our koji box, the bottom is like a stainless steel mesh.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have an option to either close that bottom or keep it open by putting extra layers of plastic or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, we do use plastic liner on the shelf, and the shelf is like the wire shelf. So we put the plastic liner and then put the koji box on top of it, and then that
Okay.
closes the bottom, right? And if yeah, for uh, after Naka, we take that liner off so that it has a
Oh,
little
okay.
more air circulation, and then also we do have a fabric inside the koji box, and we change if you cover the koji box or you open the koji box or something like that. Yeah.
Mm. You don't have like anything like large that goes over all the boxes at once or anything like that?
No, no.
Okay.
We put koji boxes in on the shelf,
Yeah.
so it's like a typical wire like shelf that you can
Oh,
find.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, 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 and four layers on both, on two columns.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think I've seen your Koji room, but I don't think it was in operation when I saw it. It might have been
Mhm.
still kind of being built
Yeah,
out, actually.
yeah.
Um, let's see. Someone did wonder about your Koji batches that you're doing. Do you happen to change the percentage of spores or the type of spores between those batches, or are they the same? Like, in other words, is your recipe the same percentage of spores the whole way through?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, yeah. We were talking about if we can do a little bit different, especially for shubo. But right now we are not using shubo,
Yeah.
right? And also, yeah. No, we are not there yet.
Okay. Oh, no worries. I think this is like everything
Mm,
you've been saying about keeping it on process, and this is one
mhm,
of the things I've admired about your process for so long is and this is coming from like wetlands where they went big, and
mhm,
iteration was very difficult, and I've
mhm,
walked away from that experience having a very, very, like, if I were to start a brewery, 1,000% it would be small,
mhm,
very iterative. And I think the fact that
mhm,
you focused on that and your employees' like life balance and happiness is
mhm.
huge. So I appreciate the consistency. Um, and with that, so this goes along with like for your customers, how do you gauge how much product to make of a particular batch? Kind of going back to your presentation, you did say you were pretty much at full capacity, like just trying to keep product available. Not even
Yeah.
so it doesn't even sound like you were holding back or making more than you were just saying we made as much as we possibly could as fast as possible. Has that changed now?
That
That
has changed, yes. Yeah. Oh, so that was at the last space, and then that was the reason that we expanded.
okay.
And yeah, we expanded, and we had a little more. kind of optimistic sales growth, or yeah, but just realize that okay, it's not that quick. So we step back a little bit, and then right now we are hitting the right supply and demand point. But now the demand is catching up a little bit. So we are talking that okay, we need to increase the production a little bit, not like full capacity yet, and that was the reason that we just posted a part-time assistant brewer hiring, because we need a little more resources on there. But always it's a kind of juggle, and one, you need to decide the initial capacity of your brewery, and that's a capacity that you cannot exceed without doing a major investment, right? So that's something that or you need to do your homework to research, like okay, in your market, how many people are buying sake, how many restaurants are buying sake, if how many bottles people are drinking, and then of course it's not easy, but at least you have a kind of idea that if we have this big system, at least we have enough potential customers to sell the sake that we produce. So that's like a maximum sizing. And then actual sizing is a different, depending on the season, depending on the demand, you need to be able to change the output. And then if you do have a space, or you can have an extra stock, so that's a little bit easy, right? You don't need to react right away, but you need to react before you run out of the safety stock, right? Or while we don't have that luxury, so we only have probably I don't know how. Yeah, we probably only have like 1 week or 2 weeks of stocks here. So if we have a surge of the demand, we are still in the position that oops, we don't have sake, or we need to bottle this weekend or something like that. Yeah. But
that's a great problem to have, though. I mean, be in a situation where you actually have that level. So to that degree, you are keeping your capacity, as you said. You're not doing weekly yet. So at some point, you are, as you're scaling this up, you have that headroom where you can continue to grow. And yeah,
up
so
to a certain level.
we'll catch up with you when you hit that next level of capacity, and you're growing once again. It's exciting.
Yeah. And then my initial sizing was relatively easier for this phase because we knew Brooklyn Cooler was expanding, and we knew the Brooklyn Cooler's original size. So we knew that definitely that's a size that there's a demand for that size. Right, and our current brewery size is almost the exact same size with Brooklyn Cooler's before expansion or facility. And I went there and then asked them, okay, how do you feel about this size? And then they kind of helped us to feel the volume of what they're doing. So yeah.
This is gonna be great too, because we're gonna have Brandon next month. So I'm so excited to like talk through. It's kind of in a lot of ways then a continuation of that scale growth of like, okay, now that you have this ungodly amount of tanks, and what are your challenges now? And I know there's a lot he can talk about. So all watching that happen. Someone asked a great question because it goes back to your market of like, using the market. Were there any cases in which the market was wrong? Like you thought that the market was telling you the right thing, and then you went, oh no, that's like maybe the data looked like that, but then maybe it actually wasn't. I'm trying to think of an example of where I've seen this in the past. But I think in most cases it's more like as you had said, internally everyone thought this was going to sell, and then the market completely went the other way. But I figured I might as well ask in case there was any situation which you remembered, like, oh yeah, like we thought we read the data right, but really it wasn't a good move. I don't know.
Only one thing that I can think of is like the shift of the market from from during COVID to post COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a little bit misleading because we operated mostly during the COVID time at the older space, right? And then some of the data were a little bit skewed. So like, okay, like a direct to customer shipping. So we ship our bottles to the customers, and we thought that was a fairly big chunk of our retail sales. But actually, no, nobody orders anymore. That was a COVID behavior.
It's COVID behavior. Yeah, COVID was just that. You could do a whole study on the beverage industry, and I know there's been many published, but especially because sake was a budding industry in America, right? As COVID was kind of kicking off, and it is
Yeah,
so weird how many people decided to open breweries. What literally right as COVID was starting, it's almost as if like people predicted it. It was so weird.
yeah, yeah.
Um, anyway, let's see. Um, if you 50. Somebody was talking about different sizes and bottles versus cans. Someone was asking a question of because I know like Wetlands made this decision. North American just started moving over to cans recently. Have you found bottles? Just talking market. Have you found bottles just to be more what people are looking for in the city? Have you considered going uh, any part of your product in cans just to see how it would go, like a one-time run in.
So, the initial decision that we decided to go with the bottle is just probably just because I didn't do a study. And then, to me, I grew up with the 720 ml bottle as a standard of sake format. So, it was no brainer. And then, nowadays there's a different perception for the can or like a small jar sake. But, my relationship with that sake is something that if you want to go to like some like a horse race stadium and then lose your money and then drink sake at the konbini, that's a sake that you have to drink. That's my perception of the small format sake. But so I didn't think about that. Well, one time I did a bit of the financial study that okay, what if we decide to do the smaller format, and then it was not that great just because okay, it's smaller, and so the price point that you can charge for the customer is lower. And there's a part, I don't know how much you would pay for the smaller format at the wine shop. Oh, but you cannot justify the premium to make sense because there's more, it costs more for the same amount of sake, right?
Yeah.
For, probably the one bottle of sake is equivalent to like 4 cans or something like that, depending on the size of the cans. But you need to have 4 times cans, 4 times, labels, 4 times labels, and then everything, right? Or maybe you can bundle, but still, probably it's a little bit hard to justify. And then if you can make a lot of smaller format, probably that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about a small scale production, it's a little bit hard. And then, equipment is more expensive than bottling equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like cost unforgiving for smaller players. You might be able to use like a mobile canning operations, but still, it's probably a little bit hard. we don't know. I like the canned format, and then people like the canned format, and then I have multiple or potential or wholesaler account that they rejected the 750 bottle because it's a
Oh,
too.
really?
Yeah, and I was specifically told that, yeah, I love your product, I love your sake, so I would buy your sake if you can put that in a can or like a 375 ml bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. All
yeah,
right, that's good to know. It is a. I think everyone's trying to figure out, especially in retail, like where do you put it? Where does it fit on a menu? There's
hmm,
I'm not even gonna get into this, but I know for a fact, like the question of does sake go in a white wine section? And a lot of people are like, absolutely not. But you talk to people and they say, I've just started to see RTDs on bar menus now. And it's blowing me
mm,
away because I can't believe we hit this point where there's enough of these things that they have a whole section cut out for RTDs. And
yeah,
sake shouldn't be there either. But the thing is,
hmm,
we're going to need a lot more sake available in the US at a bunch of different bars before someone's going to say, okay, we're going to have whiskey, gin, rum, and sake
yeah,
chunked on
yeah,
there, right?
yeah,
So it's a big discussion, and whenever we start getting into that business side of things, I always say that like at least brewsake.org, it's interesting stuff for people to think about, but that is not at all what we are trying to handle because it's like
yeah,
it's just a different mindset of business and distribution and you know other people are focused on that. So
yeah,
um, so your press, you got this new press, you had it
yep,
designed, right? You had that made. Was it made here in the U.S. or was that made abroad?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, that wasn't with Trey, was it? Over at Micropure, they didn't put that together,
What?
did you? That wasn't with
What?
Micropure
What's
filtration.
micropure?
Oh, they're a company in Ohio, or did you have that done
Okay,
in New York?
okay. No, it's wait. The shop was in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay, great.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm just throwing out random names, seeing if one stuck.
yeah. But yeah, that's a three-part collaboration, and right now the intellectual property is with Ida team. So if you're interested, contact Kono-san and get a code
Yeah,
from Kono-san. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, Kono-san's fantastic. um, I got great stories with Kono-san from two sake fests ago. We'll save
Yeah.
those. Well, off air. Um,
Okay.
but so regarding your press, you had your old press at the other location, and now Troutman, this nice one. What are so? I think a lot of us who knew you knew that old press used to give you a lot of trouble. And the question is, what did you learn in that press that you've kind of resolved in the new one? What are some of the things that you took away from it, if any? If you didn't, that's fine. If you're still learning, but just curious.
Here. Oh. You know what? The old school press that you see in Japan has a lot of like wooden black blocks on top of the lid,
Hmm.
right? So that you can kind of change the gap between the ram and the lid.
Yeah.
And then that's a great flexible way.
Hmm.
Although that was a little bit of the maintenance nightmare.
Uh,
And this place has a lid attached to the ram, so that the lid goes up and down.
mm,
But we sacrifice the flexibility of having the different distance between the ram and the lid.
mm.
And then because of that, it became a little more expensive because you need to have a long ram
Yeah.
to have a long kind of running distance, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So if if we could have solved that problem and some kind of variable or distance between the RAM or the mechanical side of the RAM to the lid, you'll get the Nobel Prize, I guess. That's a great way to design the fune.
Yeah.
But the challenge with the new fune that we have and we are designing was, okay, if you want to have a proper clearance and then proper size, and then you want to have the lid attached to the ram, then
Mm.
the total height of the press goes up to the ceiling. And our fune only have like less than 2 inch clearance to the ceiling.
Wow.
Yeah, because it has to go up and down, and then up to the bottom, not bottom, but close to the bottom of the fune, and then needs to go up to have enough clearance so that you can safely work under the lid.
Mm.
And yeah. But at the same time, having a separate wooden block or something was a little bit too much, so we didn't go for that route. So that's one. What else? All the fune did what it had to do, so it was okay. Yeah, and then our old fune was super cheap, so it served
Yeah.
for the purpose for 3 years. Yeah.
Would you recommend to the people if they were starting off at that scale? Like, is there something else you would throw at them and say, don't use that, use this other thing? Or would you say, look, at that size, if you're doing a 500-liter batch, like
Yeah.
this is actually pretty good. Like I would go through the trouble. It's a pain in the ass, but like,
I think it was pretty good. Yeah. One thing that I would upgrade is to have some type of the pressure reservoir. So like simple metal coil or something, so that mechanical side to add a pressure, and then lead kind of distribute the pressure to the bags, right? Or if those are kind of fully attached, then the pressure or increase of the pressure is depending on the mechanical side, right? But if there's a buffer in between as a spring or something, then you can continuously put the pressure without moving the mechanical part for a certain time.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. So that's something that I knew that's possible, but didn't.
Okay. I'm trying to envision like how that works, and I think I understand what you're saying. You still have your old press, don't you, at your new place? You just kind of like put it off to the side like a relic to be remembered.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're coming up on 5 o'clock right now, so I'm gonna see if we could just get one or two more in here.
Sure.
Like I said, I have such a long list of questions, so I'm going to apologize to everyone in advance. We're definitely not going to get to all of them. So here's an interesting one. So, because you're doing a lot of process, what does a standard operating procedure look like for koji making? Like, did you put together like here's how I want you to do this when I'm not there, or are you pretty much always there for koji, or is Joni always there to kind of, move the process along?
Koji is the only area that we don't have a good SOP right now.
So it's the one thing people asked about. You're like, well,
we were very we build the theoretical SOP before we started operation. Like, hey, this is what we are kind of thinking we should do, and then we revise that as we go. And every time we hire a new person, we tell them to build your own SOP, and we will review your SOP. So we have a good SOP, everything except koji. And I don't know why we didn't build a SOP for koji, but usually with our current space, koji is everybody's task. So whoever who in the brewery goes into the koji room together and work together. Yeah. And so you know, if I'm in the brewery, I usually be in the cold room. If Johnny's there, she's in the cold room all together because it makes more sense to have more hands in there. And for that reason, probably we didn't have to have any SOP.
Hmm.
But that being said, we have a whiteboard in the cozy room to keep some of the key numbers so that we
Sure.
don't have to remember everything. Like, okay, how many times you sprinkle the spores, what the grams per, batch spores, and then what's like a temperature target, and then all those things. But other than that, everybody kind of knows. And then we do this like twice a week, and if you do same thing for like 1 month, 2 months,
You
you
just
don't
get
need
it. Yeah.
SOP.
It's in the
Yeah,
process. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But that being said, probably we should have an SOP for Koji.
Yeah, I think what I can definitely say is like the experience of going to work at a brewery that had an established process, albeit a little bit all over the place. Um, One of the things that was so difficult sometimes was that they didn't operate as everyone going together. So there was like one person that would go in and work for like 2 hours doing a task.
Hmm.
And now that
Hmm.
I've seen many, many other options, even while I was there
Yeah.
talking to Brandon and stuff like that, who would say, no, no, we all do it together. Like it makes
Hmm.
more sense. And I actually think for people that are starting breweries, like making it a priority to make sure your team all comes together for something like that, where it needs to be done quickly. It's obviously
Hmm.
so important. There's so many things that you know stem from that process that it's great to have everyone involved. I also think it's just a great social moment to kind of talk with your team while you're doing it.
Definitely,
You know,
definitely,
it's like you
definitely.
get to see each other's faces because most breweries you're done with that and someone goes over there to work on the press, someone's over doing something else, lab work, whatever, and washing rice and yeah. So um, let's see. This is more business wise, but someone asked why you didn't follow the brew pub model, and just because of how popular that seems to be. Um, and I think that question probably could be changed to say like, why did you specifically focus on a say like a tap room model as opposed to? And if I remember, you couldn't even you weren't a tap room officially at the old place, right? Um,
Yeah, but it was in the original plan.
Okay, it was. So the
Yeah,
tap room was.
yeah,
But did
yeah.
you decide against doing a brew pub because you said it's like I don't want to get into the kitchen, or is that like a future endeavor?
No, I'm not interested in
Yeah,
cooking. That's
yeah,
I that's not that's not the thing that I do. There's great people who can do the restaurant and the stuff, especially here. So
yeah,
I'd like to go to somebody else's restaurant. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know, but you know it was simple. I just wanted to make sake, and then I love to go to like breweries and wineries, and then everybody had a tap room, and then I love to hang out in tap room, so I wanted to have my own tap room. That's it. Very simple. Never thought
yeah.
about brew pub.
In all honesty, I actually think one thing I haven't seen is someone put together a comprehensive study on the breweries that have existed yet so far, sake breweries specifically, and say which of them are having success with which model in which scenario. Because I
Mm,
actually think when we talked about this a little bit, like North American, like started having a lot more success when they started publishing and making the because they're not in the city, right? They're not getting the foot traffic in the same way you're getting, and so it's a totally
mm-hmm,
different scenario. But when they were
mm-hmm,
advertising people to come in for ramen, people were like googling it middle day, right? They're going, oh look,
mm,
there's this brew pub,
mm,
I want to go over there. And then once they find out that they're a sake brewery, now they're coming back because they want to try the sake and they want to have that again.
mm,
Whereas
mm,
your business model and the fact that you were coming out with sake and people were getting it so quick you couldn't keep it on the shelves, very different scenario. And people that have made their way out to the countryside to open a brewery, have found that struggle of, oh, there's not as much foot traffic here, even
Mm.
though we're, maybe the same size as another brewery. So
Yep.
it's just an interesting observation. I thought it was an
Mhm.
interesting question because you could have decided, we looked at it, not worth it. But I think it's great you can survive without it and flourish
Mhm.
without it. So,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. We do
um,
have a kitchen. We do have a small kitchen, but that's only for the staff meal. So.
yeah. On this vein, so do you, like I said, a little bit more businessy than I want to do. In fact, I'm going to specifically choose one that's not that because someone asked about your flowing nectar, the mirin,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and was just kind of curious when you were because they make a lot of mirin like at home, so this was like a curiosity.
yeah,
When you were developing the flavor of that, they were
yeah.
curious what kind of changes you made along the way to kind of hit that flavor profile because it, it they really like it. um,
Okay. It tasted like that for from the first pilot batch.
really,
Yeah. Oh, again, I didn't do anything creative. Just use the textbook recipe, right? And then I didn't have shochu, and then I only had a sake, so just use that as a base. But I
yeah,
didn't change anything else. And then, I let it set for 2 months, and then it became million, and then people loved it. So yeah. Well, one thing that we noticed about million is because it's low ABV,
yeah,
there's still fermentation happening.
uh,
And especially we don't refrigerate the tank. We let it go with room temperature.
okay,
So the milling that we made during the summertime has more interesting flavor compared to the one that we are making during the wintertime. Yeah, and both are good, but summer one has more like a fruity, floral, a bit of the acidity.
mm,
Oh, while winter one is more like a traditional or caramel honey
mm.
style milling. Yeah,
You're letting it sit at whatever the room temperature is when you're
yeah,
or okay, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is real interesting. I've been doing a little bit of a side by side of
Hmm.
aging sake in different environments.
Yeah,
And when I was down in Louisiana, I had one that sat in this sunroom that it was in opaque containers, so it wasn't getting sun damage. But
yeah.
that room would get well over 30 Celsius, like 35
Hmm.
Celsius, not strange. Another
Hmm.
one was in like a cupboard that sat at about 20 Celsius, and then another one that was actually at 10 Celsius in a refrigerator.
Yeah,
And the flavor differences between those as you go towards 30 Celsius is like
yeah,
clove and really rich and spicy. And as you go
yeah,
back down to 20, it becomes more
yeah.
honey and
Oh,
almost sweeter, like almost overwhelmingly
yeah,
sweeter. And then as you hit
yeah.
like 10, it just doesn't have as much of those notes at all. Like it ages, but it
Oh,
doesn't age with those kind of notes. That's what I noticed.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so I'm really curious to see how things age. Um,
yeah.
have you aged any of your like long term aged any of your mirin yet? No.
Okay, aging is a space issue,
Yeah.
right? You need to have a space to be able to age stuff, and we want to do something, but yeah.
Go put it over at Brooklyn. They got Brooklyn. He has tons of space. Throw it in someone's office. Go throw it in Tim Sullivan's office. He has a ton of space there. You
Yeah,
can
they
get a
have they have space. Yeah,
yeah, get a view
yeah,
of the Statue of Liberty while it ages.
yeah, yeah.
Um, awesome. Well, Shinobu, this has been great. I've already kept you like almost 40 minutes over what I told you to be here for. So I'm going to let you go, and
All right.
we're going to wrap this up today. I'm sure there's more questions to go, but for right now, I think you've been a huge. Um, this has been a huge success, and you've been fantastic, being so open, so genuine about this process. I really hope that it inspires other people out there to start, even if they're already just home brewing right now or they've been doing it for a while, really continue opening up about their challenges and realize this is not limited to, oh, I'm home brewing. This is a ongoing challenge and what makes
Yeah,
sake brewing so interesting. it's never ending puzzles and how do we solve it, yada yada. So so everyone, next month coming up is going to be Brandon from Brooklyn Cura, and then the month after that, Jake from Sequoia is going to walk us through rice and a whole bunch of stuff about that as he's been working on his own varieties and growing his own version of Calrose out in California. So it's going to be an interesting thing, and Brandon's going to be going all over product development and everything like that too. So I think it's going to be really awesome. Tune in for those, and Shinobu, can't thank you enough. I appreciate it, and we'll.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, hopefully, I'm in New York soon and can come by and enjoy once again. So,
Sounds good.
everyone, go visit Shinobu. And you had mentioned something earlier, and I was gonna say, oh, yeah, while we're gonna go out, Shinobu's hiring. So there's the thing. Are you do you still taking right now? Are you still taking resumes or contacts for brewers, assistant brewers?
Yeah.
Is mostly what.
Yeah.
And then your
Yeah.
other role open right now is for front of house.
No, the other one is a wholesale.
Wholesale. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Take care. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.